All right. So let's get started. Well, good afternoon, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Jess Grill, and I am a volunteer at ANJEE. Also with me today from ANJEE, we have Pat Heaney, and we have Kelly, and then we have Stephanie. Excellent. And we're really excited for you to join us today for our Furthering Your EE Career Workshop as part of ANJEE's 36th annual conference. Although we would love to be in person today, we're fortunate to be able to bring you this workshop, the same quality of workshops, just virtually. And we also want to thank the generosity of a few sponsors that has allowed this year's conference to be free of charge to everyone. So a special thank you to PSEG, New Jersey Natural Gas, and also our anonymous donor who is a friend of science and environmental education in New Jersey. So this panel will provide some structured guidance on how to advance your career in environmental education. The experts you will hear from have been there, done that when it comes to searching for a job or hiring the right individual to fill a position. Having a career in environmental education has never been more important. So make sure you are prepared as you start, manage, or change jobs in this incredible field of work. So with that, we will have Hap start us off.
That's great. Thanks so much. Let me get my screen up there. And all we need to do is let that settle down. Hey, everybody. My name is Hap Haven, and I am an outreach coordinator for the state of New Jersey, more specifically the Clean Energy program in the state of New Jersey. And my story is actually a wonderful story. I love my career, and I've been a little bit of everything. Currently, I'm talking mostly to contractors about high efficiency equipment in the southern area of New Jersey, southern half of New Jersey. But I've been a BPI trainer and proctor, and I currently hold 6 technical certifications. I pioneered the home systems approach to energy education using my 3 energy model homes. I've been an energy and solar and moisture auditor. I've been a DOE technical field observer, which was a fantastic job for me because I got to travel all over the country looking at sustainable projects. I was elected into the BPI Hall of Fame in 2011. I am an award-winning gardener. You can talk to me about gardening all day long. Okay, I'm an author, and most recently, I just started an Instagram channel called Green Home Guru. Now, what I'd like to just say is that when people think about careers, green careers, they think about ecology or education, even environmental justice. But I would submit to you, okay, that in fact, you can do any career as a green career. Okay, and because I can tell you right now, we need desperately the dentists, the garbage collectors, and everybody else to practice sustainability. So I basically say to you, it doesn't have to be a specific quote unquote green career, ecology career to make it a green career. And every career has bumps in the road. And I think, and I've talked to a lot of people this year, contractors specifically, saying that COVID has been that pothole, for them. But I always say potholes are really just becoming your opportunities. And I'll tell you one of my biggest potholes. When I was in graduate school doing my master's in landscape architecture, my mother died. I had no other family. And I ended up sitting here in Philadelphia alone and grieving. And I said, the only thing I could say, which is, Hap, get yourself going. You got to do something. So I took a part-time job. And that changed my entire career, okay, away from landscape architecture. And that's really interesting because my advisor at the University of Pennsylvania was Ian McHarg. And if you know the history of ecology and environmental design in this country, Ian was it. Okay. And I took a job with his prestigious firm, Wallace McHarg, Robertson Taub, and I worked for them for 3.5 years off and on. And while I worked for them, I realized that I didn't want to do that. So that was, a big pothole, my mother dying, but in fact, it gave me the information I needed, okay, that I wanted to go a different direction. And that was basically into energy. Okay. And so here is the Sunhaven carriage house right now. I've had 3 different carriage houses. This is how I bought it and fixed it up. And for years and years and years, gave solar tours and every imaginable sustainable tour that you can imagine, recycling, reusing, groundwater recharge, at the whole 9 yards, right? So I had a wonderful time doing this in 3 different houses over the course of 30 years, along with all those other things that I showed you. But I want to show you a big pothole, another big pothole for me. This was the house when I originally started with it. We had a French raised bed intensive garden there, and we used a water barrel in this corner right there to store all the water from this side of the roof to use in the garden. But the pothole happened when I found out that, hey, and you have to understand this is long before there was an industry about water collection and use. And so what we ended up doing is creating these like a spa for termites. All of those beds are being held up only because of the paint on them. This picture was taken after we took all the soil out. Okay, those beds were riddled with holes, and we got rid of the rain barrel. Okay, but that pothole, which ruined a garden that we'd been using for 10 years, okay, became the impetus to do this. Okay, what we did is, maybe you can see that pipe that's coming out of the gutter. Instead of having the gutter connected to the rain barrel, we ran the gutter through this trellis and then out to about 12 feet away from the house. And this is what it looks like today. Okay, there's the rain barrel, there's the trellis, but now it has roses and vines, on it. And any overflow, okay, doesn't hurt the house or anything else. It goes into this rain garden. So here's the thing about potholes. They lead to something else, right? So here is my outdoor living room. It's a 16 by 32 patio that is in fact a groundwater recharge basin. All the water that lands on that goes into piping. It goes to a dry well to where my apple orchard is. So, and I still, use all this to do education, but now I'm going to do it through the Instagram account. All right, so I need to keep moving here. So this is my summary for my career. You saw the breadth of my career. It's only a career if you stick to it with vision, passion, and a sense of mission. Okay, everything else is just a series of jobs. I had a singular focus over 10 different jobs. Okay, but it always brought me back to sustainability and the built environment and the landscape environment. So I always say, have fun. Okay, even with those potholes that you get. So Jess, I hope that is fast enough. I got through as fast as I possibly could there for you. And I'll stop sharing.
That was great. Yes, with so many people, it's very hard to get everything we want out because we all know we're so passionate about what we do and what we have done in our careers and want to see future environmental educators and environmental or people with environmental and conservation career goals to see the different routes. So thank you again. And next, we will be hearing from Stacy Richardson. And I will be putting her bio in the chat for anyone who would like to read it. And again, any questions for any of our presenters, feel free to put in the chat. We'll be able to keep track of them. Stacy, did you have a slideshow to share?
I do not.
Okay, no worries. We will just put you up as spotlight and you can start when you're ready.
Okay, great, thanks. So I'm Stacy Richardson. I am Deputy Director of the Division of Clean Energy at the Board of Public Utilities. I don't think I have as extensive a background in environmental education as the rest of the panel. I can kind of tell you about my career, how it has dipped into environmental education, and also where I am right now. And then happy to take questions at the end. So I don't think I really encountered in the environment until college. My family was not very outdoorsy. So we had a 6-day backpacking trip in the Adirondacks right before college. It was sort of an orientation trip. And I just was struck by how connected I felt to nature. And it sort of stuck with me through the rest of my life. And it's been a foundational kind of place which has informed all the work that I've been doing in the environment and now more in the clean energy. So, I think that in terms of what Hap was talking about in terms of mission, I feel that my work is very mission driven in terms of doing things, developing policy, taking actions that are better for our Earth, but also good for people and for the economy. So after college, I didn't major in anything related to the environment in college, but I did some volunteer work at Stony Brook Millstone Watershed Association, which I think many of you will know. This was back around before 2000 or so. I volunteered as a teacher naturalist there, learned the ropes with the great staff there. I think Jeff Hoagland is still there, but a lot of people have moved on. But it was great. I was teaching the little kids about how to look for signs of spring or whatnot, and it was great for me to sort of be in that position. I ended up also helping the executive director with some projects that were more policy related. In the meantime, I started at the DEP again as a volunteer, trying to just get my foot in the door. So I was sort of categorized as a clerk typist, but I was doing working for the deputy commissioner's office as a special assistant, and was working on the sort of the green side of things, water quality and quantity, air quality, lands, natural lands, and was there for a few years. Went to Governor Whitman's office at the time. She was looking for an environmental policy advisor, advised her for a short time. And then when the administration changed, I went to the New Jersey Garden State Preservation Trust, which was, I'm sure many of you have worked with that program too, in terms of conserving 1 million acres of land. So, and then from there, I went to the Watershed Association, and that was a great experience. After that, I went to law school, very interested in environmental law and policy, and worked in legal aid and worked for an environmental organization called Green for All, which is dedicated to building an inclusive green economy strong enough to lift people out of poverty, which was then led by Van Jones, who's now kind of a CNN personality. But again, so I think the continuity of my career has been about environmental protection, but then the social justice piece came in with legal aid and Green for All. Came back to New Jersey and started working for the Board of Public Utilities in the legal division, and then moved over to the Division of Clean Energy, where I currently work mostly in energy efficiency. I guess what I would say to the folks who are listening is that for me, so many opportunities have opened up just through volunteering in an area that you're interested in, and you want to get to know people, you want to know what it's like, and then they get to see what your capacities are, what your skills are, kind of can prove yourself, and then opportunities can open up. The other thing I want to mention is that even though I work in more of a policy setting right now, there are so many ways that we are involved in communication. So I know that's not exactly what maybe environmental education is about in terms of ecology, but if there are any people who are interested in sort of using what you've already gained in terms of your skill sets, there's so much communication to the public about education in terms of, say, how do you reduce your energy consumption? How can you be more energy efficient in your homes or in your businesses? And what are the opportunities out there, especially for example, low to moderate income customers or less advantaged individuals or businesses. So we work with NJIT, for example, on explainers and tutorials, and that's sort of kind of education in a way, and also Sustainable Jersey as they work with municipalities and local government working to implement their clean energy actions. So I guess I will leave it there and look forward to hearing what other people have to say, and also happy to answer any questions. Thanks.
Great, thank you so much. And I I don't know. I feel like working in policy can also be environmental education because you're working with so many different policy makers who don't all focus on environmental policy. So you are, in a way, educating them on why the environmental conservation and environmental policy is helpful for so many other routes as well. Excellent. So up next, we have Anne Siebecker from the new Weis Center. And let me spotlight her for everyone. And then, Anne, when you are ready, feel free to share your slides, and we're excited to hear from you.
Thank you. Can everybody see that? Hopefully. I apologize, I didn't get my bio over. I'll put it in the chat when I'm done. So here it is in a nutshell. My role currently is I'm the director and a board member for a nonprofit in northern New Jersey called the New Weis Center. It's a very interesting property. It's been there and has served environmental education in some way for 100 years just this past year. But it had many names. From the 1920s on, it was Camp Midvale. Then many people knew it as the Weis Ecology Center. That had a couple owners. And then it closed for a few years. And I was part of a nonprofit that formed to take over ownership and operation of it. And we reopened the New Weis Center, renamed it a little bit, and reopened it in 2016. So we're still a very new, young, small grassroots, but really fast growing nonprofit. So that is my role there is on the board, and I'm the director. My pathway to get there was very kind of convoluted, not a straight line. So I began my career as a major in equine studies, not something I find that I need every day now, but I was really into horses. So I went and got my degree in equine studies and proceeded to never use it again. And then I went and got a regular business degree, and I primarily worked in medium to large corporations for, 30 years. And always wishing that I could do something that was more connected to my interests and passions. As time went on, I sought out ways to kind of fulfill that through volunteerism and getting involved in things in my community. Similar to what I'm hearing from the first two presenters, particularly what Hap said, there was a period in my life about 5 years ago when a bunch of things coincided. Me losing my job at Sony, they moved everything overseas, them offering me the opportunity to pay for retraining, college or whatever, and at the same time losing my mother. So that was kind of a crossroads, and I was caring for her full time and decided to go back to school. And I went back to Bergen Community College, and for their certificate program, it was about 1.5 years in green technologies and sustainability. I got my LEED certification and Green Advantage certification. And then my mom passed away. So I continued on and was really more dedicated than ever because she always wanted me to follow my passions. So I had to figure out how to do that because I had built a 30-year career in something I thought was not applicable. But it is, and it was, because the nonprofit world, although, the saying is they don't exist to make a profit, but if you don't make a profit, you don't exist. So bringing my business background, my marketing, my budgeting background, it was an asset. It was just up to me to position it that way and bring it. Just a couple of the things that happened in a very short period of time. I put them up there not just to tout my own horn, but to show how in the space of 5 years, I went from not really having anything you could call credentials, just a passion and a love for nature and the environment and outdoors, to gaining some credentials, Rutgers Environmental Stewards Program, receiving an award, and going from helping with a new nonprofit to becoming a board member, to becoming a part-time paid person, to becoming my full-time career. So it can happen. You don't have to work for years and years and years. It can happen in a short space of time. It's really all about looking for opportunities and making the most of them. So that's what I do there at the new Weis Center. And I also have some other responsibilities in town. And to echo again what the first two presenters say, volunteering is, I wouldn't be where I am if I wasn't a volunteer, because it was through my role as a volunteer environmental commissioner that I learned of the initiative to save and reopen Weis, got involved in that, made connections, networked, and you know, especially if you're in a certain field, there's a lot of overlap and you run into a lot of the same players, and making those connections was very important. So, you know, culminated in the achievement that last year Weis won the ANJEE, the Environmental Excellence Award, which was such a proud moment. We're still crying when we look at the award. So just a little about, you know, what our kind of philosophy is at the new Weis Center. We can't do it unless we all work together. Paid, unpaid volunteers, community members, partners. It takes everybody to make it happen and make it the success. This is just a few examples of the kind of programs that we are running now at the new Weis Center, especially some recent ones for people in an environmental education looking to go into that. We are in the non-formal sector. I wouldn't say we are a traditional nature center. We don't have any animals or, you know, major gardens to tour or exhibits or anything like that. But we do a lot of environmental education. We also have a focus to preserve and conserve and be land stewards to our property. We have 152 acres. So that's some of our programs. So this kind of echoes back to what I was saying in the beginning. Because I do all the hiring part-time, which is primarily what we have, full-time, and then lots of interns. We have, I don't know, 15 or 20 interns a year. Some are short-term, some are longer-term. You know, I've kind of come to see that the least frequent, I think, is the top left there, the straight road. You know what you want to do, so you're single-minded, you go to school for it. Every one of your job experiences is in that area, and you plow on ahead to an illustrious career. I don't see that very much, and that's okay, because there's many paths to get to there. It could be a fork in the road, like for me, when I lost my job and my mom was passing away, I had to make a decision to go back to the world that I knew or to try to forge a new path, which was scary, and I chose that path. I also think that there's a lot of times you feel like it's never going to work. Circumstances are against you, no more so than right now with COVID. You have to take a detour, and that's okay too. And then lastly, which I feel is really more like my pathway, is the bottom right there, where, I don't know, things circle around, they connect, they disconnect, but you get there somehow. So this is just, again, echoing that one of the things I find is that a lot of the people who come through our doors, or right now we're not inside, we're outside, who pass through our property, they are not making the most of these opportunities. And so many people that I hire because they volunteered for us or they interned for us, particularly interns. And yet we have a lot of interns that come that don't maximize the opportunity. So I would encourage anybody who is thinking of volunteering or interning. It's really important in the field, in my opinion, and it's it just can be the way in, as much as looking for job want ads. And this is just a couple things that come to mind when I'm thinking about the people that I've worked with that are looking to break into it. You know, you always hear the networking, but it's true. This is networking right here. If you join your local green team, that's networking. If you're, you volunteer for a cleanup, that's networking. Everything can be networking, but it's up to you to reach out, talk to people, ask questions, see if you can connect with them, follow up, and then, take initiative. If you're interested in something, research it, learn about it, be prepared. I have people all the time that want an interview, and when I talk with them, they haven't even gone on our website and looked at it. So, you have to do your due diligence, and then, as I said, volunteer and network. So I'd be glad to talk with anybody some more about what I mean by some of these things and some more specific examples. And I also wanted to mention that as a result of me being like really frustrated with some of the people that I feel that, oh my gosh, you have this opportunity, or why aren't you looking for an opportunity, or feeling a little frustration. My mom always said, if you think you can do it better, then do it. So I decided to start offering career mentoring, and I'm offering free one-on-one sessions. You have to sign up on Eventbrite. I offer them anywhere between 2 and 4 times a month, and it's 45 minutes, and we just talk one-on-one. We can talk about, I don't know which direction to go in. Can you help me with my resume? Where do I look for jobs? So I talked to people. I had somebody yesterday who called me from California. So my area that I'll know the most specifics in is environmental ed, New Jersey, but I'll be glad to talk with anybody if they want to chat, because I know it can be hard, it can be confusing, college students as well as post-grads.
So it's a lot of information, really great information. Next, we will be moving on to Dr. Lauren Madden. She's the coordinator of TCNJ's Environmental Education and Sustainability Program. And Dr. Madden, we are ready when you are. Let me just put you up on Spotlight. Ooh, you moved in my list. There we go. Excellent. All right.
Hi, everybody. I know some of you, I don't know all of you. My name is Lauren Madden, and I'm sort of the formal K-12 education side of things that I'll talk a little bit about today, but I'll share my screen briefly to talk you through some of my own personal background, how I got to be where I am along my path right now, and some other thoughts. So let me just share my screen. All right, so a little bit about me. I hold a bachelor's and master's degree both in oceanography and marine science. And when I was working on my master's in chemical oceanography, I focused closely on climate change. So I looked at how phosphorus influenced sinking marine particles to sequester carbon. I was really interested in it. I loved every minute of it. I thought it was the most important thing in the world. This was just before George W. Bush took office, and if I wanted to continue doing this work, it was going to be work for an oil company or do a PhD. And I was not ready for either of those choices. But the thing I have been doing, and this is probably the part of my story that kind of sinks through with the others you've heard, is I've been volunteering. I'd been working at my local middle school on a program called Science Quest to help kids who really liked science and maybe didn't have a chance to think about how science fit into their life, to do all kinds of really fun activities. And I really love those kids. So when I finished my master's, I took a job teaching middle school science at that same school in Columbia, South Carolina. And I really loved every moment of it. I love the 7th graders and that weird phase of life that middle schoolers exist in. And then I decided the researcher bug and the scientist bug in me wasn't really gone. So I started working in educational research and evaluation. I did some test item writing and some evaluation of NSF projects, and eventually decided that I wanted to make these two worlds meet. And I did my doctorate in science education at NC State. Since 2011, I've been at TCNJ. I'm a professor of elementary science education. I launched 2 different degree programs in environmental sustainability education. So the first one is a 5-course minor for pre-service K-12 teachers. We have graduated students in early childhood education, elementary education, urban education, secondary education, including biology, chemistry, and history, women and gender studies, and deaf and hard of hearing ed is the only education major at TCNJ that we have not had students work in our program in. But this is a really nice way to think about how environmental education happens across the curriculum and across the grade levels. We are the first program in New Jersey to earn certification from NAAA for the 5-course minor. We're also one of the only certified programs that's directed towards pre-service traditional formal educators rather than informal educators. We also just launched a 4-course graduate certificate for practicing teachers. I think we all know what this current academic year looks like, and that means crazy, right? So we were going to start the courses back in January, and we decided to pause for a moment. There will be one course offered this spring, and then we're going to start back up in the summer when we're able to get a better handle as to what normal looks like for everyone. I've been a PI, a principal investigator, on 2 different environmental education grants, providing professional development for practicing teachers. One was focused on working with school-based teams on doing initiatives at a school level. And the other one that I'm working on, and GraceAnne, who will talk to you later, is one of our partners, is on integrating climate change and marine science into the K-8 classroom. Okay, so that's me. So when we think about environmental education in formal settings, well, in New Jersey in particular, we need it. Climate change standards are now included across all grades and content areas. That includes things like PE and social studies and places outside the science classroom, which is remarkable. And we are so lucky to be in that situation. Many programs exist across our state to integrate environmental and/or sustainability education in K-12 settings, including eco schools and Sustainable Jersey for Schools. Schools need leaders, teachers who are willing to fill out the grant applications, to gather all the materials, to build partnerships, to reach out to the community, to work with families. We need people who are passionate about and knowledgeable about these areas to serve as leaders in their schools. How can you be this person? If you're interested in working in a traditional classroom space, what can you do to help yourself stand out to really be an environmental educator in your school? So first of all, come to ANJEE. This is a great place to start. This is wonderful professional development. And the other thing you always learn at ANJEE is about all these other professional development opportunities that exist. If you love these kinds of things, consider some of the certificate programs that exist for teachers. There's a lot out there where you can gain these credentials to really serve as a leader in your classroom and in your school. Consider formal degree programs. Ours at TCNJ are designed specifically for classroom teachers. There are many programs that exist that are for informal educators. And I put a little bit about our program there. There's going to be a need for teachers. There is a need for teachers right now. Some are retiring because they can't stand remote learning. Some are retiring because they don't feel safe being in regular classroom settings. Every one of our December graduates got scooped up right away. It's not that there's a shortage right now, but being the type of teacher who can make themselves stand out as someone special and different and unique who's committed to environmental ed is such a wonderful thing to have. So if you're interested in thinking about what EE looks like in a traditional formal setting, please feel free to reach out to me. I talk fast, but I will let it go on to the next person. Thanks. I think you're muted, Jess.
No. Thank you for letting me know. Sometimes it doesn't always click on when I click it. Thank you so much. I might actually be reaching out to you because I am interested in some of the things you've talked about. Great. Again, as everyone's been saying, these sort of conferences and gets-togethers and these professional groups are a great way to network and further your career and explore different avenues. Great. So next we'll be moving on to GraceAnne Taylor. She is from Save Barnegat Bay, and I will spotlight her. So she is up on the screen for everyone. There we go. So take it over.
Thank you so much for having me. Again, my name is GraceAnne. I'm the Education and Outreach Coordinator at Save Barnegat Bay, and I'd like to share a few things with you, and I want to make sure I'm doing this correctly. I just want to start off by saying that I didn't know that I wanted to be an environmental educator, and college was not my strong suit. So I'd like to give you some things that I think we don't necessarily think about when we think about how we're going to be moving forward in our career. We talk about resumes and certifications and degrees and experience, but there's a few things that I think you should really keep in mind. So first of all, say yes. Say yes to lots of different opportunities, whether you think they're perfect for you or not. Say yes. This photo looks completely irrelevant, but it's not actually. I was doing a demonstration in Washington, D.C. for Service Here, which is an organization that advocates for Peace Corps, AmeriCorps, and youth build programs. So underneath this eagle costume is in fact a professional outfit for which I use to knock on doors of our legislators, our federal legislators in this case, and it gave me experience doing advocacy work that I could then bring home to my work at Save Barnegat Bay. So there's lots of different opportunities, but you just have to say yes. And even if they're not quite exactly what you think they are going to lead you to. Say thank you. I've worked in many different entities in Ocean County. That's how I got my current career job at Save Barnegat Bay, working full time. And part of my success was because every time I met someone, a volunteer I worked with, or a person that I consistently saw, I was constantly showing gratitude to them for showing me opportunities, showing up to volunteer their time, their expertise, their treasure, their knowledge, whatever thing that it was. And these people didn't ever leave. I continued to work with the same volunteers with different hats on. So say yes, say thank you. Remember names. This is so important. Every time I showed up to a networking event and I was able to recall who that person was and what they did, it allowed me to then connect the dots between other professionals that were really important and integral in me finding my way. So this is a picture of Liz Jackson. She doesn't actually know this story, but she works for the DEP and she's wonderful. And from meeting her, I ended up connecting with many other people sequentially after her that brought me to places like Honduras and Florida, and moving forward in my career and my scuba diving passion and everything else. So remember names. And last but not least, of this little PowerPoint is don't do it for the money. And so I'm just going to echo what everyone else said, in that you need to do a lot of interning and volunteer work to really make yourself known. This is behind the scenes at Camden Aquarium. You're looking at a group of young people who are part of a group called Hooked on Fishing, Not on Drugs. And it was an overnight, so I was not getting paid to be there, but it was a blast. I got to take kids through the aquarium, and I have worked in 2 other aquarium facilities, so this one wasn't too much different. But I was in a sleeping bag in the middle of the night, sleeping on the floor in front of a jellyfish tank, and it was just so much fun. But I wasn't paid to be there. I wasn't putting it on my resume. I wasn't doing it for that reason. But a lot of experiences like this that were kind of ridiculous, like dressing up like an eagle, allowed me to find my way. So I just want to show you some other pictures while I talk about my my background, so that, hang on, I'm like stalling. How do I get out of here? There we go. Okay, so I'm not going to open each picture individually, but basically when I went to college, I didn't know, I went to a specialized high school for science and math. And I was very fortunate, but I didn't know I wanted to be an environmental educator. As a matter of fact, everyone around me was doing science and data collection, and it wasn't my strong suit, but I did it anyway because I thought that's what I was supposed to be doing, what I had to do. But I started to figure out that my strengths were with doing hands-on work. So my first internship in the Barnegat Bay watershed was at Jenkinson's Aquarium. That's me in the corner holding a baby penguin. And then I figured out that I had a knack for that type of work. So I moved on to Long Island Aquarium, where I was going to school. And those are the 2 pictures you see with the turtle and the seal. I worked in different departments. And then the thing that really solidified me knowing what I wanted to do was interning at the Sedge Island Natural Resource Education Center. That's an island in the middle of Barnegat Bay, where we got to expose youth to Barnegat Bay everything. So they went fishing and clamming, and we went kayaking, and we had to be babysitters and we did everything. But that allowed me to really see that I had strengths in doing environmental education, and I was just excited every day to get up and teach these kids and families about Barnegat Bay and everything. Google threw a marching band picture in there. So I went on and I served as the New Jersey AmeriCorps Watershed Ambassador in 2014-15 for AmeriCorps' New Jersey program, which is environmentally based. It's one of the only ones. It's the only one in this state that's environmentally based, and one of the few AmeriCorps programs that have an environmental component. And so that really that was the first time I got paid to do the work that I loved. So it was stewardship, it was education, and career and networking development. So I highly recommend that program. You do need to have a bachelor's to do it, but it's great because you get paid for 10 months. You're not locked into it. You get a ton of experience and networking opportunities, and you meet other amazing people. And so I served here in the Barnegat Bay watershed, where I now have my career. And that led me to work at Barnegat Bay Partnership. And let me just tell you, when I worked there, I had to be up at like 3 o'clock in the morning to do herring surveys. And I had to be in the mud and the cold. And I knew that I didn't want to do science as a career, but I still worked there. And I was pretty open and honest with my team that I knew I didn't want to do it forever. But I thought it was really critical that I get that experience, because now as an environmental educator, I have experience on the ground. I put the shovel in the ground. I did the science and data collection, in some regard. I do have a marine science degree. So it really allowed me to do environmental ed with more transparency and clarity and skills. So I would say, when I say yes to things, I really mean it. Like, you really don't know where you're going to get the experience that's going to back you up. I volunteer on a dive team. These guys are like my family. They're local, and our dive team does all kinds of weird things. But we do work for Barnegat Bay, and so now I've been able to integrate my love of diving with my work full time. This is, my work at Ocean County Park. We got to do all kinds of interesting things. Again, hooked on fishing. This is me building a fishing rod in the middle of the night at an overnight program that Liz was running. Again, one of those situations where I wasn't getting paid to be there. My back hurt. It was tedious. It was terrible. But I gained so much. And I was honored for 2 sessions to coordinate the Barnegat Bay Master Naturalist program. And that allowed me to network with these individuals who now are volunteers with me at Save Barnegat Bay. So again, the networking. Sometimes I'm in a classroom, sometimes I'm dressed professionally speaking in front of a more formal setting. Sometimes I'm in the classroom with kids doing EnviroScape and, rainwater, stormwater. Sometimes I'm marching in a parade dressed as a cardboard blue crab, advertising our educational programs or what have you. Sometimes I'm in professional gear, talking with our representatives, running the community garden, working at the Eco Center where I work now. And these fine women are the other pieces of Save Barnegat Bay that we can't do it without. And of course, the reason I do the work is because of people like this little girl who wrote a letter to Save Barnegat Bay. I had no idea who she was. And she wrote it to the president of Barnegat Bay or something. It was so cute and ridiculous. And she actually went to an elementary school that I attended myself. She had no idea. So I had to go meet her and do education programs with her. But overall, I just wanted to emphasize that while we focus on certificates, we focus on degrees and all of these things, we don't focus on the things that really get us where we're going, which is the networking. Say yes, say thank you, remember names, and don't say no to an opportunity, even if you don't think it's exactly what you want. I hear a lot of young professionals say, oh, that job doesn't sound like something I really want to do, or that job doesn't sound like, it doesn't sound quite right right fit. But in reality, you have to piece together what you're doing to make it happen. I was working
Grace, I'm very sorry.
You're gonna cut me off. Sorry. Oh, Grace, it's totally fine. Totally fine.
Sorry, we do have to move on. We do have one more speaker. We have Nora Dichiara from Duke Farms. And I do want to also apologize. I did that little 2 minutes that was actually meant just for Grace. I accidentally put it in the chat for everyone. So we do still have some more time. So let's get right over to Nora, and she can tell us all about her career journey.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I wanted to hear more about GraceAnne too, so maybe call again later to share more. Okay, so my name is Nora Dichiara. I am the Director of Programs and Strategic Planning at Duke Farms. So just generally what I do, I think all of us in nonprofits do a little bit of everything, but generally my areas are in 2 buckets: Director of Programs and Director of Strategic Planning. Those of you who have not been to Duke Farms, hopefully you have, for some of the, the ANJEE conferences, and for professional development and for our classes every year. But we are a 2,700 acre property in Hillsborough, New Jersey. It is a nonprofit. We have about 150,000 visitors every year. Even this year, when we were closed for 3 months, we had about 100,000 people, general visitors. We run 350 educational programs every year. And we have a cafe, we've got an orientation center, a farm, a working farm, habitats. And we also have, I don't know if I mentioned this because I'm going over my notes, 500 community garden plot programs. So it's the largest in the country, and that's education based. And then, so under that, I handle environmental education, a volunteer program, communications, the community garden program, website, all of that fun stuff. Under strategic planning, I basically, I take our mission and we implement it with the direction of the executive director. I provide that roadmap and gather the resources that we need to push forward. Also, you know, director programs in a nonprofit. So I do staff development. I coach and mentor our staff. We have a lot of seasonals that come in. That's part of my job. Accounting, business cases, stewardship of basically our money. So we have to make sure that we're always within budget, ensure that we're protected legally, and other duties like dressing up like eagles, like directing traffic through the parking lot, a little bit of everything, answering random emails. That's my job. How did I get here? So I was lucky enough where I did have, my parents were crunchy hippies, and they took us everywhere, and they instilled an environmental ethic with us. So that was fantastic. But I also had one of the major pivot points in my life was I had a high school environmental science teacher. Her name was Jane Settle. She still volunteers and she's still around. I was able to thank her as an adult, but that was what, she was really great, and she used to do research when she wasn't in school over the summers, basically doing floral inventories in Brazil. And I was like, that's really cool. Like, you could be somebody like that, and this is awesome. I had no idea. So went to college at Raritan Valley Community College for a year. I think that's important to say because not all of us are able to go directly straight into a 4-year university. Some of us have a different path, and that's awesome. And I can't say enough for the community college environment in New Jersey. Really great opportunities, especially Raritan Valley is doing some really great stuff. And then I transferred, went over to Rutgers University, and I majored in environmental policy, institutions, and behavior. My goal in life was to be an attorney. Life got in the way, and I journeyed on another path. So, which led me to Johnson & Johnson. So I worked in Johnson & Johnson for about 5 or 6 years, working in medical device marketing. And while it wasn't like I got out of college, looked for jobs, I still had to like pay my rent, do all that kind of fun stuff. So one of the things that I did was marketing. And that was really important because I learned a lot of skills that I applied there. So eventually I entered Duke Farms as a coordinator in 2004. We did a lot of research programs. I realized that we needed volunteers for those research programs, part of citizen science. So I said, you know what, we need a volunteer program, created a volunteer program. Then I was like, these volunteers need to be educated, created the education program. Then I was like, we need a plan to get forward, did strategic planning. And then I was promoted to director. So it's really finding those opportunities to move forward and creating value for my organization and collaboration. How to break in, enter anywhere you can, anywhere. It may not be the best job. I didn't want to end up at Johnson & Johnson, but you know what? I did the best thing I could, gained as much information and experience that I could, and took it and applied as I move forward. So it kind of drives me nuts a little bit to see a lot of people who are new into the career, into environmental education, to say, no, I'm not going to do that. Really do anything. Anything that you do is going to give you some sort of experience to move you forward. Build your personal brand as someone who's solid, flexible, understanding, you're in a learning mindset, you're a go-getter, you're kind. Just take that and move it forward. Volunteer. Even if you can't volunteer for 8-10 hours a week, 20 hours a week, who has time for that? I don't have time for that. I've got 3 kids. One hour a week is fine. go to meetings, conferences, being a resource, and I see something clicking. So I'm running out of time really quickly. How do I move ahead? General studies are good, but don't focus so much on your degree. Like, show me experience, show me that you're well-rounded. Experience comes from everywhere. Offer expertise, be a resource, be helpful, broadcast that you're knowledgeable and helpful. And then I had a little slide on how we can lead or connect from here. As environmental educators, I think that we have an opportunity to lead not only with children, but also newbies who are entering the field and they're into environmental studies. This year has been amazingly, a lot of people have entered into the environmental space and are interested in what we do. We have an opportunity to kind of meet them where they are and bring them in. I think there are opportunities for emphasizing research and science, even more opportunities now as we move forward, and really including other people than are traditionally at the table. I can't wait to see more and more new faces, different faces at all of our meetings as we move forward. So this is my contact information. If anyone wants to reach out, I think what Anne's doing is awesome. I love that I'm going to take a page out of your book. I think I'm going to do that. I love that idea, and offering like mentoring on a regular basis. So reach out, connect with me. I'm on all the social platforms. I'm all good with that. Hit me up. And it was really nice meeting everybody. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nora. And then now we're going to spend the last few minutes of our session time for Q&A. And I'm going to hand that over to my co-host, Pat, as she's been following the chat and keeping track of the questions.
Thank you, Jess. Hi, everyone. The first question comes from Sarah, and it's for Anne from Weis. You're still there? And she wants to know, Sarah is asking if your internships are paid internships.
We have one program that is a scholarship with a stipend, but that's only for students at Ramapo College. The other internships are not paid.
Okay, and it looks like Sarah has a follow-up question. So Sarah, why don't you go ahead and unmute yourself and ask that question, because I don't see it in the box.
Hi. Thanks so much. And I understand that this is maybe a hot take that is counter to some of the advice, but I heard from a couple of the speakers that we should be doing a lot of internships and volunteer work. And I really want to challenge that assumption, because I think it leaves a lot of people out of the field, particularly young people who can't afford to take volunteer and internships and need paid work, or for people like myself who are mid-career, and I have a family to support. And so I really am looking for tips, and I guess this is now less of a question, more of a challenge to leaders in the field to think outside of the status quo of relying on volunteer and internships to promote people and help them gain experience. And I hope that there are some other pieces of content that we can build out of that. But thank you.
Sarah, I'm really glad you brought that up, because if we didn't have questions, I had one that I was going to bring up, asking our panelists their thoughts on DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion in our field, and the fact that some people who are either looking to break into the field, who are later in their careers looking for a career change, and they cannot afford to do the volunteer unpaid internship. So I want to thank you for bringing that up.
Thank you. Our next question is for Lauren, and this comes from Julia. And Julia asks, can you tell us how to identify schools that are open to weaving climate change curriculum into their work? Now, we know that in New Jersey, all schools are going to be doing this, but I guess she's looking I'm not sure. And Julia, if you're there and you want to clarify, please unmute yourself.
Hi. Thank you all. This is really interesting. I am mid-career myself, and I'm trying to make a pivot from traditional high school teacher and just regular public school teacher and professional development instructional coach. I'm trying to pivot towards working with schools to help them revamp curriculum, particularly in project-based learning, to get climate change at the the center of what they do, climate change education, I should say, rather than just around the edges. And so Laura and I actually had corresponded with you some months ago about that course you're doing and couldn't make it work. But I'm really interested in how do you start finding schools that are really interested in doing this? Because I know there are some districts that say they're interested, but really when you push a little, that's not their first priority. So what would you recommend?
So I would say, I think that's a great question, because right now here in New Jersey, I mean, it's required in all content areas from performing arts through PE. Climate change will be integrated into the required standards. So that's something we have to consider carefully. All that said, we've been a next gen science standards state since 2014, and about half the teachers I speak to, practicing teachers, experienced wonderful teachers, have not received any training on using the next gen science standards. So it puts us in sort of a pickle. I would think so. One good resource is the Sustainable Jersey for Schools website. Has a list of all the schools and districts who have at least signed up to think about their program. If it were me and I were trying to think about where might some next people be, I'd look at districts where maybe some of the schools have gotten that certification and some haven't, and see if maybe offering your services to a school that hasn't gone through that process, but is in a district that's supportive of it, might be a good next step. So for instance, in the district where my children go, there's 4 elementary schools, and 3 of the 4 have Sustainable Jersey for Schools certification. The 4th doesn't. That might be a good place to start, that sort of thing.
Thank you, Lauren. There's a question from Lori, and it's to everyone. And she is a retired school teacher who is interested in, it looks like, part-time work. So I'm going to jump right in and say, contact me, because at the Watershed Institute, we are always looking for part-timers, or often looking for part-timers, especially with experience in the field. And my guess is a lot of our other, I see Nora nodding. I think, you can contact any of us that you might be able to do part-time work in the field. And we have a question for GraceAnne. Pat from New Jersey wants to know if you are really a mermaid.
I thought that was you who said that, so it wasn't you. In my personal ventures, I am a professional mermaid, and so that sounds ridiculous to anyone who doesn't understand what that is. But it is something separate that I do, separate from my job as an environmental educator full time. But I do environmental education as a performance artist. So I do get to do underwater performance, which is a lot of fun, free diving and whatnot. But I'm very passionate about incorporating the environmental education skills that I have professionally into that performance art. And it's really just another way to reach another target audience. So people that may not be visiting a mermaid to hear about environment are going to get it from me. So yes, I am actually a mermaid.
I love that so much.
And I think that's all the questions right now, Jess. So I'll let you take over.
Excellent. So again, thank you again so much to our presenters, Annie, Lauren, GraceAnne, Nora, Hap, and Stacy. We appreciate your time here today and your experiences, and we are just so gracious for the wonderful work that you are all doing. Just a few reminders before we close out the session. We want to let everyone know to go through the calendar, the ANJEE calendar. There are a lot of great experiences coming up both this week and next week. There might still be some openings for some of our in-person field experiences this weekend and next Saturday. Again, please subscribe to the ANJEE YouTube channel so you can see any presentations that you might have missed. And then also thanks again to our conference sponsors, TCNJ, New Jersey Natural Gas, and our anonymous donor. And of course, thank you all for joining us. And we hope to see you at our next session. Have a great day.